In my 8 years in Bitcoin, I never thought I would hear a central banker admit what Jerome Powell just said about the global monetary system. And we want you guys to pay close attention to what Jay Powell says in this clip, because this speech not only confirms what the Trumps literally said this morning, but it also, I think, gives us insight into where Bitcoin is going into the future. And also prepare you guys. It is a little dry, and we'll break it down on the flip side.
Had emerged from World War II as a global economic superpower. The Bretton Woods Agreement placed the U.S. and the Fed in a central position in the global economy. Our mission then, as it is now, was to serve the American people. But it was clear at that moment that the Fed needed to have better knowledge of global developments to achieve our dual mandate goals. A 1948 memo proposing to create the division stated, quoting, "Problems of international economics and finance have become increasingly large, complex, and significant in recent years, and our foreign economic relations will undoubtedly continue to give rise to issues of the first magnitude." That rare economic forecast that has turned out to be spot on. 75 years later, it remains critical that the Fed understand the policies and practices of other governments and central banks and their implications for the U.S. economy and for financial markets. Exchange rate policy, of course, is now firmly in the hands of the U.S. Treasury. However, the end of the Bretton Woods era in the 1970s fundamentally changed the conduct of monetary policy, as policymakers had to understand the effects of potentially more volatile movements of the U.S. dollar on American families and businesses. Understanding global trade and capital movements has only grown in importance since 1950.
All right, guys, did you catch that? Did you catch what he just said? Remember one of our favorite websites, WTF happened in 1971. Bitcoiners have been talking about this for a long, long time. And now we have Jay Powell, who was supposedly going to resign yesterday. You know, everyone's wondering whether he's going to raise rates, cut rates. What are they doing over at the Fed? Well, he came out with this speech yesterday, didn't talk anything about cutting rates or raising rates or any of that. He literally dropped a WTF happened in 1971. Now, kind of breaking this all down, very interesting things we've been seeing from not only Jay Powell, but Donald Trump. Remember a couple of weeks ago, we talked about Donald Trump mentioning the year 1913 with his funny and kind of hilarious take of no one knows what happened in 1913, but it changed everything. Well, us Bitcoiners know what happened, of course, the creation of the Federal Reserve. And now we have the chairman of the Federal Reserve mentioning 1970. Wow, you did it. And what is the importance of this? Of course, if you're a Bitcoiner, if you understand monetary history, you know the importance of 1971. That's when Nixon took us off the gold standard. That's when we fully dove straight into a totally fiat paper system. And now we have the chairman of the Federal Reserve essentially saying, well, you know, guys, in 1970, something fundamentally changed in the system, and he didn't go all into it, but us Bitcoiners know what's going on here. He is mentioning the fact that we completely detached ourselves from reality and started to get on a paper money system. Now, the interesting part about this, of course, as a Bitcoiner, we understand where this is going. And what Jay Powell is saying, if you read between the lines, he's essentially, and his job here in these speeches is to project where the Federal Reserve is going. They speak in code here, and they're essentially telling the markets, hey, look, we are acknowledging that there is a problem here. We're acknowledging that things are changing, that there might be a new monetary regime on the horizon. Now, of course, as Bitcoiners, we're like, that's going to be Bitcoin. Bitcoin will become the world reserve currency. Now we even have Jay Powell kind of admitting, hey, things are going to have to change. Now, if you're a pure fiat maxi, if you're a pure, not a Bitcoiner here, you're probably hearing that and you're just thinking like, oh, maybe the Fed's going to just change interest. Maybe their target's no longer going to be 2%. Maybe it'll be 4%. Maybe the new interest rate, default won't just be, a low percentage rate. Maybe we're going to have to move this up and we're going to all have to adapt to this. But from a Bitcoiner's perspective, what I'm hearing here is essentially him acknowledging what we've been saying on the show for a long time. Things are going to have to change. There is a new monetary regime on the horizon. And if you're not adapting to the game being played, and of course, Jay Powell is projecting what's to come. And if you aren't reading the room, you aren't looking at the horizon, then you might get caught with your pants down, metaphorically here. And I think Jay Powell is being forced into a corner. Obviously, we've been hearing him, go back and forth with Trump. He's still kind of trying to position himself in this power position. And as Bitcoiners are sitting over here on the sidelines, essentially like, hey, we know Bitcoin's taking over here. So I think it's very historic to hear Jay Powell talk about 1970. Obviously, 1971 is the big year here. And now we have the central banks acknowledging that very specific date, because we all know this changed when Nixon got off the gold standard. Basically, when the U.S. defaulted on their gold redemption, things fundamentally changed. During the Bretton Woods Agreement up until 1970, essentially the world was pegged to a dollar, which was pegged to gold. Now we're completely detached from reality, and we're seeing the downstream effects of this. Now, Nico, before we get into what Eric Trump said this morning, which is in a very similar vein, what's your thoughts on Jay Powell essentially saying WTF happened in 1971?
Yeah, I mean, dude, it's pretty crazy because Jay Powell has been talking about essentially how the U.S. government is on an unsustainable fiscal monetary policy. He's even admitted to this, right? So it's interesting that around the same time he's bringing that up, he's also talking about it, basically making the case that, look, like the kind of Bretton Woods agreement that has been put in place since World War II, it's kind of coming to an end. I mean, the writing is on the wall. They can't really hide this anymore. Lynn Alden had an amazing presentation. I highly suggest you guys watch it. It's about 15 minutes that she did at Bitcoin 2025. And she made the case that nothing stops this train. We had the smartest guy in the world, the world's richest man, the man that invented self-landing rockets, self-driving cars, go into government and try to cut the deficit. He wanted to cut it by 1 trillion. Then he moved it up to 2 trillion. He was only able to cut it by 150 billion. And the reason he left and the reason he got so, he just lost all motivation because he realized that the system is so inherently corrupt, so inherently broken. He pulled back. He says, look, I can't do this. I can't do this. I can't do this anymore. And the own party that he got elected, right? He put his money on the line. I believe he contributed like $100 million.
I think it was closer to
$200 million. He needed congressional approval for these cuts to happen. The Republicans have the majority, and the Republicans themselves didn't accept it. So if the world's richest man, arguably the world's smartest man, goes into government with Harvard, computer scientists, super geniuses, going in there, plugging their systems into all forms of government, finding all of these inefficiencies in Social Security and, not to mention USAID, and all he was able to manage was 150 billion. It should tell you that the system within the system cannot be fixed. And everyone is starting to notice. And this is why Lynn Alden said, nothing stops this train. Us Bitcoiners, we were calling this. Give me and Opti credit. Tomorrow's Bitcoin news today here at Simply Bitcoin. We were calling this. We said, look, even with Elon going in, he's not fundamentally addressing the flaw in the system. The flaw in the system is the government's unique ability to create money out of thin air that everyone else has to work for. And that inherently misaligns incentives. In fact, it creates government addicted to that free money. It creates people addicted to that free money. And what Jerome Powell is saying, and he's seeing the writing on the wall, and to give him credit, unlike Christine Lagarde that's living in La La Land, she's like, CBDCs are the future. At least Jerome Powell is coming to terms with reality and saying, you know what? this is pretty much unsustainable. Like, we can't sustain this. That's why he's bringing up Bretton Woods. That's why he's basically bringing up the fact that there's going to be some type of reshuffling here, some type of reorganization. And I think it's going to happen within the next 5 to 10 years. You have very smart people like Arthur Hayes, also made an amazing presentation at the Bitcoin conference. Larry Lepard had a podcast with him here in Miami Beach. He wrote a book called The Big Print. Arthur Hayes is basically saying, look, Bitcoin's going to hit $1 million in the next 5 years because they're going to print money. We are hearing news coming out of the Yahoo Finance article dropped a couple weeks ago, basically said that the Fed is quietly selling bonds, but there's no buyers. Who do you think buys those bonds when the Fed finds no buyers for those bonds? The Federal Reserve themselves. How are they able to afford those purchases? They print the money, right? So this is what's happening. There's a global realignment of the financial system, and you have to find yourself a lifeboat, and that lifeboat is Bitcoin. Make no mistake, the Titanic is sinking. They're running out of road to kick the can down the road. And yeah, I mean, like, it's just a matter of time, man. It's just a matter of time before they turn on the money printers to try to bail themselves out. This is an inevitability. It's not a question of if they will do it. It's a question of when they will do it. I mean, pull up the M2 money supply chart, bro. Like, this experiment started in 2008. Coincidentally, when Satoshi released Bitcoin, in the Genesis block, it says, "Chants are on the brink of the second bailout for banks." Satoshi inherently knew that they were going to keep on printing. Opti's going to show the M2 money supply. So you see that initial
this is just the US.
Here, let me make us smaller. There we go. Yeah, so you see back in 2010, 2008, that was the initial kind of splurge. Look at 2020. That was the pandemic. That, and then as you can see, it kind of, we went into like kind of this like QT type of environment. That's gone. We're back to money printing again. Maybe it's not so, overt over the table, but they're addicted to this. You can't. Lynn Alden's words are perfect. Nothing stops this train, right? So Jerome Powell is basically saying the quiet part out loud, and what you could do to protect yourself, right? I mean, you guys are Bitcoiners in this audience, so buy hard assets. I think the best one is obviously Bitcoin because of its absolute scarcity. But if you're sitting in assets in general, whether it's stocks, whether it's real estate, whether it's gold, it's all going to go up. And its value might not necessarily be going up, but because of inflation, it just balloons the asset prices. So if you're sitting in assets, when they inevitably start to print money again, your assets are going to, on paper at least, going to go up in value, right? Now, of course, this is a Bitcoin show. Our favorite asset is Bitcoin because of its physical characteristics, its 21 million cap supply, your ability to custody it with ease, your ability to transport it, your ability to send it without the necessity of a third party. So Bitcoin is the superior asset of all these assets they're going to benefit when they inevitably going to start to print money. But what's really interesting is that Jerome Powell himself is basically saying, dude, we are so effed. Like, that's what he's saying. That's what he's saying. Remember, the Bretton Woods Agreement, this thing has been around since, basically the end of World War II. The fiat money experiment started in 1970. We're coming to an end of that said experiment. And if you are not protecting yourself as an individual by storing your time, your energy, and your work into hard assets, my favorite being Bitcoin, you're going to get absolutely wrecked when Lawrence Lepard's prediction, the inevitable big print, comes.
And not only that, Nico, when you really listen to what Jay Powell said, and you said it very clearly, it's almost as if the system is rigged against us. It's almost as if, there's been an argument whether the system is broken or, Lynn Alden says you can't stop this train. Larry Lepard frames it as the big print is coming. It's almost as if you can kind of judge the system by its fruits. And you could say that maybe it was designed in this way to essentially, redistribute wealth from the masses to the upper class, or rather the wealthy elites. Well, as I said earlier, one of the Trumps went on CNBC this morning, and even he is seeing what we're seeing.
You have that clip?
I got it.
He did these things. The reason we got into crypto, and we're all in on crypto, and we're doing American Bitcoin, and we have World Liberty Finance and USD1, was because there was a time, and probably I'd been on this show, where there was I could call any single banker in New York City. They'd pick up the phone. I'd be able to get a loan for whatever real estate project I was doing across the street. Then we got into politics, and all of a sudden, they wouldn't take your call. Right. You couldn't get financing. We were debanked. And what I realized, and my brother realized, because we were the recipients of every subpoena imaginable, was that, you know what, we were actually just the top of this sort of pyramid scheme that we didn't realize we were a part of, that the financial system was totally undemocratized. Because we had a certain balance sheet and whatever, we could kind of do whatever we wanted. The regular guy was messed up. Now we were all of a sudden in the shoes of the regular guy that wouldn't be able to take advantage of the markets. And we said, what's the solution for that? The answer is crypto. You know, these decentralized platforms where you're not beholden to this, where you create efficiencies. As a guy that did real estate, you know, why am I paying points in and out for title insurance that could be done on the blockchain? So we got into crypto not because it was like, hey, this is the next cool thing. We got into it out of necessity. We got into it because we understood just how quickly we could be turned off, even as an incredible developer from New York City. I mean, I don't think anyone would argue that we didn't change the skylight of New York City, but that disappeared in an instant. I mean, we're getting sued by New York State AG, $500 million fees for paying back loans on time with interest. These aren't, you know, fair markets. There's nothing egalitarian about any of that. So we actually, as innovators, as people who understand these things, we went all in on a concept that makes total sense because we'd actually been the...
Okay, now, first of all, guys, let's just ignore the whole blockchain and his overuse of the word crypto here. He's obviously talking about Bitcoin, but he said a few important things. First of all, we've been talking about, and it seems like no one cares, but the fiat system, the traditional status quo system we are in, is literally a Ponzi scheme built on, you know, this pyramid scheme of dollar debt. This is the world we live in. And the second thing that I found very interesting, it does remind me of Safety's quote, which I am pretty sure is one of the things that got us, you know, got us in hot water over here at YouTube. So I won't say it again, but you will adopt Bitcoin because of necessity. And we're seeing that the world is waking up to the fact that they need Bitcoin. Look, we've had the Trumps go in. We know their big famous fight with Jay Powell. Now even Jay Powell is saying, hey, you know, there's something on the horizon here. There's some kind of sea change going on. And everyone out there is not acknowledging, or rather asleep at the wheel, that there's a tsunami ahead of them. And so, look, this is why we try to do the show here. We want to get into, you know, where you guys are hanging out on YouTube, on Rumble, people outside of just the Bitcoin space, and basically tell you guys the necessity is now. You need to start stacking Bitcoin. You need to start saving in Bitcoin, because who knows how long this can go on. They can kick the can down the road for a long time, but the necessity is now. You need to get into a money that cannot be debased, that is censorship resistant, that is literally peer-to-peer and global, because we're seeing a shakeup in real time in the standard status quo monetary regime, and everyone is telegraphing this exact same thing. Things are changing, and if you're stuck in the old system, you are stuck in the past, and you need to upgrade your money today.
100%, man. You need to upgrade your money. You need to upgrade your unit of account. You shouldn't be judging your net worth. You shouldn't be accounting your net worth or using dollars as your unit of account to see what your net worth is. You should be using Bitcoin as your unit of account to see what your net worth is. Your life will get better. Your life just gets better on a sound money standard. Everything gets progressively cheaper over time. Life gets less expensive. And this is the case. We're going to be dropping a Simply Bitcoin IRL this Saturday with Jeff Booth. I hope you guys enjoy it. But this is the case that Jeff Booth has been making for many, what was that?
It's a chat. It's a chat.
This is the case that Jeff Booth has been making for like essentially like many years now, that the world isn't, and this is what I want you guys to wrap your head around. You guys have to arm yourself with the truth, right? The world is inherently deflationary by default. So what do I mean by that? Productivity has increased, technology has increased, the world has gotten wealthier. However, I think this is a good opportunity to pull up the website, What the F Happened in 1971. However, as a whole, as a society, we have not gotten collectively wealthier. So if you could pull that up, Opti, to show you guys. So like the case that Jeff Booth makes, right, is that essentially if you are on a sound money standard, things should get progressively cheaper over time. That's the way that the world naturally should be functioning. That's the world that's the way that the world should naturally work. But because of fiat money, governments have been able to essentially manipulate the money to their advantage at the expense of their citizens, specifically the middle and lower classes. So here's a great example, like starting off with the first chart, Opti, if you can go up. That's 1971, right? So as you can see, the productivity, which is what I was talking about, has increased by 246%. But compensation only went from 90% to 115%. If you keep going lower, we'll find other examples of that, right? It's the same thing, right? So real medium weekly earnings of full-time workers has basically gone sideways, and the real GDP per capita has gone through the roof. So keep going down again. Income gains widely shared in early post-war decades, but not since then. So again, the 95 percentile, the very wealthy that do have the means to save in assets, continue to get wealthier, but everybody else, the middle and lower classes, remain the same. So how in the hell, since the 1970s, remember, back in 1971, a computer wasn't a thing. An iPhone wasn't a thing. AI wasn't a thing. Look at all the productivity increases that we've had as a society. And you're telling me that somehow you were able to afford a home back in the 1970s, and you were able to actually make a living back in the 1970s, and you were actually able to have single parent households where one parent stays at home and then the other one goes to work. And that today is inconceivable after all the technological increases. It's insane. What I'm making the case for is, if you don't believe that theory, switch over to a Bitcoin standard. You'll start living that deflationary lifestyle today. Things will get progressively cheaper for you over time if you switch over to a Bitcoin standard. And again, this is not only a monetary switch that you have to make, this is a spiritual switch. This is an economic shift. This is a time shift. You're essentially changing your operating system in your brain from a fiat brain to a Bitcoin brain. And I'm telling you, it comes with a whole lot of hope, a whole lot of optimism about the future, because now all of a sudden you're like, wow, I can afford that apartment that I want to buy for my family and my kids and the future generation. I can afford that car. I can afford that vacation that I wanted to go on. But under a fiat standard, listen, if you're not making more than if you didn't get a 7% increase in salary compared to the year before, you are making less. And this is what they don't take into account, right? Like, let's be real here. This is what they don't take into account. However, if you've been saving in Bitcoin, the thing is, everything is getting cheaper over time. Everything. So on a 5-year time scale, whether it's the S&P, whether it's a house, could you pull up an image of like comparing like how housing prices have gone down? So like anything you could think of, if you've been saving in Bitcoin, that house has been getting cheaper in Bitcoin terms. Eggs have been getting cheaper on Bitcoin terms. And that's the way, that's a perfect image. And that's the way, yeah, that's perfect. And that's the way that that the world should work. This is the case that Jeff Booth has been making, right? This is the way that the world should work. The only reason that Bitcoin is able to pull this off is because of its decentralization, is because of its immutability, it's because of its cap supply. So it doesn't allow the money to get manipulated and debased. Therefore, it actually allows you to save the function of money itself. We live in a world where you're forced to become a part-time investor just to live, just to maintain your purchasing power. That is absurd. Look at that. Look at that. So in 2017, it would cost you 125 BTC to buy a house. In 2020, what was this? 2022? 2022. So it's even less now. 2022 costs you 20 Bitcoin. Now, change that for dollars. Between 2017 and 2022, housing prices have doubled. So despite housing prices doubling in fiat, in Bitcoin terms, housing prices have literally been cut in by like a factor of 4, right? So switch your life to a Bitcoin standard. Life gets better. Life gets cheaper. Life gets easier to navigate. Like, that's the reality of it. Anyways, guys, smash the like button. We're at 139 likes right now on YouTube. If you guys are enjoying the show, help us break 200 likes. Also want to give a shout out to the Rumble live stream as well, going in hard. And of course, the X live stream always going in hard as well. Guys, smash the like button. Really, really helps with the algos to push what we've been telling you, this message forward. Jerome Powell is admitting that we are entering the end stage of the Bretton Woods era, the end stage of fiat. He himself is saying that the U.S. monetary policy is unsustainable. Lynn Alden's making a presentation. Larry Lepard's writing books about it. Arthur Hayes is making presentations about it. I mean, some of the brightest minds, some of the smartest people are telling you the quiet part out loud. You have to choose as an individual whether you're going to take agency and action on that information from some of the brightest minds in the industry. Nothing stops this train. Anyways, before we move on to the next segment, I do want to give a very special shout out, of course, to our lead sponsor. Simply Bitcoin would not be possible without our sponsors, and I want to tell you guys about Bitcoin Well. Bitcoin Well is the best place to build your automatic self-custody Bitcoin stack. What makes Bitcoin Well different and unique and special, and why we recommend it here at Simply Bitcoin, is because it's automatic self-custody. They don't even allow you to leave your Bitcoin on the exchange, meaning when you buy Bitcoin on Bitcoin Well, as soon as the funds clear, it goes straight to your self-custody Bitcoin wallet address, which perfectly aligns with the Simply Bitcoin ethos of reclaiming back your sovereignty. Also, when you buy Bitcoin on Bitcoin Well, you earn something called Bitcoin Well points. You could use those points towards a bunch of different prizes, right? Like an orange Cybertruck, a Simply Bitcoin hoodie that Opti is wearing right now. By the way, you can go to simplybitcoin.com, get yourself some Simply Bitcoin merch, and you could use it towards the Bitcoin Wishing Well contest, which we're going to be doing live for you guys right now. Toss a coin into the Wishing Well. First person to scan it with their Lightning wallet has won 420 sats. By the way, if you go to bitcoinwell.com/simply, bitcoinwell.com/simply, and you sign up and you make your first purchase, you get 3 tosses into the Wishing Well, absolutely free. And every single toss, you have an opportunity to win up to 1 million Satoshis. That's more than $1,000 these days. And just for signing up and making a purchase. That's crazy. That's generous. It's a win-win for everybody. What are you waiting for? Go to bitcoinwell.com/simply today. Anyways, guys, we have a hell of a show lined up for you guys. Me and Opti are going to be doing the shows in person, in the flesh, and we got some special surprises for you guys in the next coming weeks. We're going to be talking about many, many things upcoming. We're going to be talking about, it's interesting, again, another article, again, these Bitcoin conferences are different. They've changed up these days. They're entering in the political sphere. These Bitcoin conferences used to have cypherpunks, used to have people that were just, kind of like total anti-state, like Eric Cason. And now we have, Fortune 500 CEOs. We have politicians from the top echelons of power. So it's a little bit different. Bitcoin is maturing. the Wells Fargo report that we read you guys yesterday. Bitcoin is becoming institutionalized. And also, there was an article by the Las Vegas Sun, which I thought was absolutely hilarious. And it quoted Eric Cason, it quoted CJ, it quoted myself. We're going to go through all of that. And we're going to just kind of have like a recap of like, where are we in Bitcoin's history? Where is Bitcoin going to be 5 years from now? I think you guys are going to really enjoy that conversation. And then during the numbers segment, I have a very special video of you guys of Hester Pierce, the SEC commissioner, again, basically saying like, look, banks have the ability to custody Bitcoin, baby. There's 3 things that Michael Saylor said needed to happen in order for Bitcoin to hit $5 million per coin. He said the first thing is the change in the FASB accounting rules. Second thing, he says the approval of the spot Bitcoin ETFs. The third thing that he said was the ability for banks to custody Bitcoin. Under the previous administration, the Biden administration, they actively tried to sabotage the Bitcoin industry left and right. They tried to stop it. But with this current administration, he's opening up the door. He's saying, listen, we're going to leave you Bitcoiners alone. I mean, we had a sitting vice president make a speech at a Bitcoin conference. We are winning. We got Ross Ulbricht freed. We are winning. This is what winning feels like, and we're just starting to win. This winning is nonstop. We got beat by a 2x4 metaphorically for the past 15 years. That's over now. We're in the driver's seat. If you're not in the room, you're not in the deal. We are in the room. This is what winning feels like. So act like winners. Act victorious. But you got to stay on guard because the mission isn't accomplished yet. The final goal of Bitcoiners is to get a president in the White House that wants to end the Fed. Anyways, ladies and gentlemen, we will be right back in just a second. We're going to hit the numbers. I want to tell you guys about our sponsor, Stampseed. Is your Bitcoin in cold storage really secure? Are your seed words really secure? Stampseed's do-it-yourself kit has everything you'll need to hammer your seed words into commercial-grade titanium plates instead of writing them down on paper. Don't do that. Paper sucks. You want to literally stamp your seed into this plate of titanium. Your words are actually stamped into the metal plate with this hammer. So once your words are in, they aren't going anywhere. No risk of the plate breaking apart and your pieces falling everywhere. Titanium stamp seeds will survive nearly triple the heat produced by a house fire. They are also crush-proof, waterproof, non-corrosive, and most importantly, because this is generational wealth, time-proof. All things that paper is not, allowing you to hodl your Bitcoin for the long haul. I mean, here is the plate that they crushed. They put in water. They put a blowtorch to it. And as you can see, the words have survived. Stamp your seed on Stampseed. And you can use promo code SIMPLY to get 15% off anything on their store. Head over to stampseed.com today. All right, everybody, we are back and we're going to cover the numbers, ladies and gentlemen, and let's get to it. At the time of recording, the Bitcoin price is $106,020. Block height, 899,672. Sats per dollar, 943. Market cap, 2.11 trillion. Bitcoin versus gold market cap, 8.89%. Percentage issued, 94.63%. Decline from all-time high, negative 5.3%. Realized monetary inflation, 0.85%. Again, taking fiat currencies to absolute school. I do want to play you guys this video of Hester Pierce. Hester Pierce is the SEC commissioner. Let's check it out.
What we're trying to do with eliminating SAB 121 is to say, if you have experience in custody, you can come into this space. It's not to say that entities that are crypto native and want to provide custody that they can't do it, but it's really to say we want to have as broad a pool as possible of potential custodians. That's what's best for.
So let's break down essentially the difference between SAB 121 and SAB 122. and the significance of it from the ability for institutions to custody Bitcoin. So last year, and I was talking to Eric Weiss about this on a Simply Bitcoin IRL, and he actually believed that one of the big reasons that the Biden administration lost, or better said, let me phrase that better. One of the big reasons as to why the Biden administration kind of fell out of favor with the Bitcoin and crypto industry was because the SAB 121 repeal passed the House and it passed the Senate. President Biden vetoed it. Maybe his auto pen did, but he vetoed it, right? So it passed the Senate, passed the House, and Biden was like, no. One of the first things that Trump did when he got in office was he repealed SAB 121. So what is SAB 121? SAB 121 essentially required entities holding crypto assets for others to report these holdings as balance sheet liabilities. Could you imagine that? So you're holding Bitcoin on behalf of an entity, and if Bitcoin drops 30, 40%, you have to write on your balance sheet to reflect that drop, even though those aren't your assets. You're holding it on behalf of someone. And by the way, I can't confirm this for sure, but after experiencing Operation Choke Point 2.0 over the last 3 years and the essentially death by 1,000 regulatory cuts type of strategy, I think this was on purpose, right? I think this is the type of regulation that is set up in a way where it wants you to fail, or it essentially makes it so difficult for you to navigate that environment. It de-incentivizes institutions from adopting Bitcoin or holding Bitcoin on behalf of their clients, right? So this is why this law was so important to be repealed. This is why Michael Saylor said this was one of the 3 things that essentially needed to happen in order for Bitcoin to reach $5 million per coin. So it goes on to say, this created significant financial constraints and hindered traditional financial institutions from entering the crypto custody space. So here is SAB 122. So SAB 122, this bulletin issued in January of 2025. Here, and Opti wants me to share the screen when I'm showing, so I will do that for Opti. Now I lost it. Okay, here it is. So SAB 122, this bulletin issued in January 2025. Of course, the first month Trump, was inaugurated. January 9th, I think was the date. Rescinds SAB 121, provides new guidance for accounting obligations to safeguard crypto assets. It aligns crypto asset accounting with contingency principles, allowing entities to assess liabilities based on the probability and estimatability of potential losses, right? So the impact, the repeal of SAB 121 removes a major barrier for traditional financial institutions to offer crypto custody services. It allows them to evaluate their risks using established accounting standards, potentially leading to greater integration of digital assets into the traditional financial system. Now, this is exactly what Elizabeth Warren didn't want to happen. Remember, when Fidelity announced that they were essentially going to allow Bitcoin, they were going to allow their clients to buy Bitcoin for their 401ks, she personally hand wrote a note to Fidelity basically saying, stop, I don't want you to do that. Now, you have to think about what are the motivations behind this. I think the motivations behind this is they just don't want Bitcoin or digital assets as a whole, whether it's stable coins or altcoins, to be a part of the traditional financial system because they want a monopoly over money. I think it's as simple as that. I can't come up with another explanation. Now, their explanation is consumer protection, right? My counter to that is basically saying, what about consumer protection from inflation, right? I showed you guys at the beginning where what the F happened in 1971. I showed you guys the data. It's there. It's clear, right? If you are in the middle class or if you're in the lower class and if you want to get by, you have not earned more money since the 1970s, even though productivity has increased by a factor of 2. And the very wealthy have gotten significantly wealthier. This is the Cantillionaire effect. This is fiat for you. What about consumer protection from inflation? What about consumer protection from fiat? So when you are against Bitcoin being integrated into the traditional financial system, what you are telling me, who is well-versed in all of this, and Opti's well-versed in all of this, I think all Bitcoiners are well-versed in all of this, is you don't want people to have the ability to save. And I'm telling you, that is evil. That is evil. You're taking away their hope. You're taking away their dignity. You're taking away their humanity. Really. So yeah, man, like I'm really glad that this is happening. We got a huge victory in Poland with the pro-Bitcoin president, which was awesome. We got Nigel Farage that spoke at the Bitcoin conference. So yes, I mean, winning across the board, but I want you guys to stay focused. I want you guys to pay attention and realize where we are in the movie. Fiat politics still matter. Voting in the traditional sense still matters. Of course, the most important vote you can make is buying Bitcoin, earning Bitcoin, mining Bitcoin, and putting that Bitcoin into self-custody. But keep your eye on the ball. 2026, we got midterms coming on. And I don't care if it's a Republican or Democrat, but we want pro-Bitcoin politicians in office. And we want this worldwide. We want this is a grassroots movement. Remember, I've said this, I've tweeted this many times. Governments think they can regulate Bitcoin, or governments think they can co-opt Bitcoin. But in reality, it's going to be Bitcoin that co-opts governments. It's going to be Bitcoin that regulates governments. It's going to be Bitcoin that provides a check. It gives power to the people by giving the people the ability to save without the fear of their currency, of their energy, of their value, of their time being debased. Opti.
Yeah, well, good rant, good Nico Jones rant to start off a Tuesday. But Hester Pierce, I forget what people were calling her. They call her like the godmother or grandmother of crypto, or they have like a name for her. I forget what they call her. It's something like grandmother crypto or something like that. I don't know. I forget what it is, but you could look it up.
I think Hester Pierce is the GOAT.
Yeah, that's basically what I was going to say. And Hester Pierce, I think, she's obviously, if you guys don't know, she's been a long time Bitcoin/crypto advocate. She's in a very powerful position, and she seems very friendly to the industry and actually has a favorable view around Bitcoin, which I think is a breath of fresh air here. And I saw a tweet this morning of Frank Corba. If you guys don't know who Frank Corba is, he is over at Bitcoin Magazine. He's literally has a pass to sit in the White House now as a journalist or correspondent. And I guess there was a pub key event either last night or, over the weekend or something like that. And Hester Pierce was there, and she had a talk, and she was talking to Bitcoiners. And basically, Frank Corba went up to her and was just like, I talked to Hester Pierce, and I was telling her that one of the most important things she could do was basically allowing in-kind redemptions of ETFs. And there's some back and forth there. But by the end of the conversation, she was like, you know what? Like, I'll take this into consideration and I will think about it. It's obviously a vague response, but I think it's a totally different view from what we've heard from other administrations, whether it's Gary Gensler, who we thought was a Bitcoin maxi, even though I trolly call him a Bitcoin maxi, what we see from the Biden administration, what we've seen from Elizabeth Warren's anti-crypto army. They don't listen to what we're saying. And now that we're in the room now, they are starting to listen to us. So whether this is just politicians pandering or, people in institutional powers pandering to Bitcoin, I think we are starting to turn a new leaf here where they have to acknowledge what we're doing. We're no longer, a tiny asset here. It is a significant player on the macro stage. And so the fact that we have Bitcoiners in a position where they will listen to what we're saying, they will listen to, the quote industry experts, I think this is a good thing and something that we've never seen before. Because for a long time, they were just basically like, yeah, like, shut up, kid. Like, you don't know what's going on. You don't understand the game being played. And now we oh, man. I don't know if you guys heard that. Nico's blowing me up over here. I lost my train of thought. And now we've gotten to a point where they're listening to us. And I think this is going to fundamentally change and alter the trajectory of Bitcoin around the world, because what America does, every other country will follow. The ripples are starting, and I think, whether this plays out sooner than later or later than sooner, things are changing in real time, and you just love to see it.
Yeah, 100%, man. And again, guys, we are winning. Let's keep on the pressure. We got momentum, right? Let's not forget. Let's not take our eye off the ball. We're winning. We got to keep the pressure. This is how we're going to win. Anyways, guys, we still have a hell of a show lined up for you guys during the news segment. We're going to be talking about a lot of the things that you guys are talking about.
Oh yeah, there it is. Crypto Mom. Thank you, Kudos.
In the comments, basically saying like, look, like Bitcoin has become MAGA. Like it's basically lost its cypherpunk roots. And I think it's a great topic to talk about. So we're going to be talking about that during the news segment. So stay tuned. And then during the culture segment, Opti's got something special lined up for you guys. So we're going to be right back in just a second. I want to give a shout out to our sponsor, Casa. Casa makes self-custody easy and secure. As a Bitcoiner, I care about holding my own private keys, but multi-sig can sometimes get tricky. Casa nails it with a multi-key security. So even if one key gets lost or stolen, your Bitcoin stays safe. And you don't give up custody, meaning no one could access your Bitcoin but you. No seed phrase anxiety, no single point of failure. I've been telling my friends and family about Casa for years. Their UX and UI on their app is by far the best in the industry. Inheritance planning is built in, and they even offer Casa for Business if you're thinking about a Bitcoin treasury. Hit up casa.io today and use promo code SIMPLY to get 10% off Casa Standard or Casa Premium. Head over to casa.io. I want to give a shout out to our partner, CoinKite. If you take your Bitcoin security seriously, you'll need the best Bitcoin hardware wallet on the market to take self-custody. That's where Cold Card comes in. The Cold Card Q is the most advanced Bitcoin signing device ever made. It's got a full keyboard, larger screen, and NFC support, making air-gap signing easier than ever. It's built for power users who want the ultimate security without sacrificing usability. And if you're looking for a battle-tested, uncompromising cold storage, the Cold Card MK4 is your go-to with PSPT signing, an industrial-grade secure element, and USB-C. It's the perfect blend of security and convenience. Both devices are, of course, 100% Bitcoin only, open source, and built by Bitcoiners for Bitcoiners. Secure your Bitcoin the right way with the Cold Card Q and the MK4. Head over to coldcard.com today and use promo code SIMPLY to get 5% off anything on the store. All right, everybody, scan the QR code on your screen right now. Get yourself the best Bitcoin hardware wallet on the market, the Cold Card. They got two of them, the MK4 or the Cold Card Q. The Cold Card Q is the flagship. It is the power horse. It has an A to Z keyboard. It has two security elements, right? You could sign transactions in so many different ways. You could scan it, you could tap it, you could SD it, you could USB-C it. It's dope. It's awesome. So go to coldcard.com today and use promo code SIMPLY to get 5% off anything on the coldcard.com store. Imagine your Bitcoin is worth 10 times what it is today, right? So you got to plan into the future. Don't leave your Bitcoin on exchanges. Don't leave your Bitcoin on a hot wallet on your phone. Store it the right way, and the right way is with Cold Card. Anyways, guys, let's get into today's news segment, starting off with this Wall Street Journal article. It's behind a paywall, but I think the headline is just enough. It's good enough to kind of just set the tone. The Wall Street Journal: Bitcoin goes all in on MAGA, shedding its anti-government slant. Despite wins under Trump, some crypto factions are wary of politicizing industry. Las Vegas extravaganza, check this out, becomes a right-wing rally. Interesting. So moving on to this next article, is kind of does a little bit of a deep dive from the Las Vegas Suns. Bitcoin bros' mistrust of government lingers even after GOP's embrace. It goes on to say, Make America Great Again hats and crypto-themed variations of the slogan were everywhere among the 30,000 attendees at last week's Bitcoin conference in Vegas. One booth featured a life-size cutout of President Donald Trump, bloodied from an assassination attempt. But instead of raising his fist in defiance, he gripped a physical Bitcoin. And each time Vice President J.D. Vance discussed a new Trump administration's policy during his keynote address, the audience erupted in barely contained excitement. The scene suggested Trump and the Republican Party have successfully courted the cryptocurrency community, whose advocates poured over $200 million into the 2024 presidential campaign and are already witnessing returns on their political investment. Gary Gensler, the former SEC chair who garnered widespread animosity from the cryptocurrency community for the agency's increased enforcement, stepped down in January and to end regulation by prosecution. The Department of Justice shut down its cryptocurrency enforcement team in April. But not everyone walking the halls of the Venetian Convention and Expo Center last week was pleased to see so many Republican politicians, like U.S. Senator Jim Justice of West Virginia and Cynthia Lummis of Wyoming, taking center stage. At the conference, Bitcoin's anti-establishment origins clash with the reality that the cryptocurrency had become part of the very system it once opposed. So let's talk about that, right? So here, I'm going to highlight it for you guys so you guys could. It is a very interesting conversation. I'm glad we're talking about this. When Opti and I initially brought this up during the previous election, we got a lot of crap for it. Like we were basically saying, like people were basically saying, like, look, like you guys are sellouts. Like, you know, why are you talking about politics? Why are you talking about Trump? Like, why are you talking about this? Like, what are you guys doing? This is a Bitcoin show. And the case that we were making for you guys is, if we want Ross free, you have to throw your you have to throw your hat in the ring. If you don't want to get persecuted from a regulatory perspective, you have to be in the room while the deal's being made. So you have two choices. You either choose to pull an ostrich and put your head in the sand, metaphorically, and just pretend nothing's there, or you continue bouncing from jurisdiction to jurisdiction, or you plant a flag. And you have pro-Bitcoin politicians in office that are representing your interests. That's the whole point of a representative democracy, which is the United States, and most countries around the world are democracies at this point. So unfortunately, you really have a choice between two. Do you want a pro-Bitcoin person in the position of power, or do you not want a pro-Bitcoin person in the position of power? And to say otherwise, to say that it doesn't matter, is completely naive. An example of that is El Salvador. I mean, you had a country where essentially it was, one of the most dangerous countries on the face of the planet, and they got a pro-Bitcoin president in the presidency. They made Bitcoin legal tender, and it became one of the safest countries on the face of the planet. So, like, we always talk about the separation of money and state. We always talk about that. We always talk about how we want to give power back to the people, and the way that you do that is by the people opting out into a money that can't be debased. We always talk about that subject. The way that you do that is by increments, right? It's by moving the Overton window. 4 years ago, if I told you there was going to be a pro-Bitcoin president in the White House, you would have laughed me out of the room. You would have said, that's not going to happen. That's impossible. That's not true. It happened. And now you have a pro-Bitcoin president whose family is buying Bitcoin. He's indicating that he has the intention to create a strategic Bitcoin reserve and accumulate more Bitcoin in a budget-neutral fashion. Is that better or worse for Bitcoin? It's better from a number go up perspective. It's better from a regulatory perspective. Is it better from a revolutionary perspective? No, because the revolution is individuals taking Bitcoin into self-custody. That's how actually things change. But it's not black and white. It's gray, and there's full of nuance. And just to kind of take this attitude where like the system is so broken, I just don't feel like participating. If we all took that attitude, Ross would still be in prison right now. So just something to keep in mind. Operation Choke Point 2.0 would still keep going. So anyways, it goes on to say, Eric Cason took a hit of his vape on the conference secondary stage hours after Vance finished speaking. The panel's moderator asked him what he thought of the state. And he goes on to say, all of this is true. Bitcoin works without the state. He said to the around 100 attendees inherently listening, quote, you can own Bitcoin today and exit from this establishment that's designed to steal from you and redistribute that money towards war and horror. That is not a hyperbolic statement. When they print money, that's a wealth redistribution mechanism. Why do you think there's endless wars? In the Middle Ages, when the king ran out of gold, the war would end. When you have a money printer, you can continuously fund that war till the end of time, right? That wasn't a unique opinion amongst his fellow panelists. An OG Bitcoiner on the community's podcast circuit who goes by American Hodl said that there's a real risk that Bitcoin could lose its status as freedom money the more it cozies up to the government. And Bruce Fenton, a New Hampshire Bitcoin investor with 125,000 followers on X, said politicians need us more than we need them. I think that's something else to keep in mind. Remember, do you think Trump did this out of the kindness of his heart? Do you think these countries are changing their stance on Bitcoin out of the kindness of their heart? The fact that Bitcoin, that Trump campaigned towards Bitcoiners is a testament to the power of our movement. He needed the votes, and we gave him the votes because he came through. That's the whole point. That's how representative democracy works, right? It goes on to say, we live in a state-worshiping society, and you hear people, even at events like this, oh boy, the undersecretary of this, the elected official here, who cares, Fenton asked the crowd. We should refuse meetings with them. We do not need these people. I disagree with that, by the way. I think there's nuance, there's gray areas, right? There's President Trump, JD Vance, the Bitcoin Senator Cynthia Lummis. I think they've done amazing things for the industry and for Bitcoin as a whole from a regulatory perspective. So I disagree with that statement. Anyways, it goes on to say, here, the community's distrust of the government goes back to how the technology behind Bitcoin works, said Nico Moran, host of the daily YouTube show Simply Bitcoin. The original white paper for Bitcoin set out to create a transaction system between two people that didn't need a trusted third party. And Moran said one of the selling points is being able to use money the government can't access. Moran added that historically the community has been less interested in politics, though that changed under President Joe Biden. Bitcoiners were forced to throw their hat into the ring due to aggressive enforcement under Biden's tenure. And despite Trump delivering on his pro-crypto promises, Moran said most of the community does not like the industry cozying up to government officials. Even still, sometimes you have to play the game, which is what I've been telling you guys for months now. If you're not in the room, you're not in the deal. And we were not in the room in DC for a very long time. We're in the room now. I think Bitcoin's core is incorruptible. And I think it's always going to have this leave me alone type of mentality. But the proudly counterculture Bitcoiners walking around the Venetian have baggage of their own that may limit their ability to go mainstream. I disagree with that part. But you guys get the general gist of it. Yes, we're going mainstream without a shadow of a doubt. Yes, the institutions are here without a shadow of a doubt. Yes, politicians are getting involved. Regulations are being talked about. Bitcoin Act, the approval of 2 strategic Bitcoin reserves in Texas and New Hampshire. These things are all happening. But Jeff Booth's quote comes to mind. With Bitcoin, you have to get okay with even your worst enemies using the technology. That's how it works. That's how it is. Bitcoin is for anyone. And you have to get used to it. That's the reality, right? So look, we have 2 choices. We either choose to sit on the sideline and just pretend politics don't matter, or we choose to get involved and we choose to get our interests pushed forward and protected as Bitcoiners. We have the influence. We continue to get wealthier. We have a voting demographic block. Why not use that to our advantage? I think we all want to move to the world of the sovereign individual where politics don't matter because the state no longer has the ability to create money out of thin air. I think we all want that future. We want a future without central banking. I think we all want that. But there are steps and there's a process, and you have to play the game in order to get there. And I think that's the tough pill that Bitcoiners are going to have to swallow. Opti.
Yeah, well, I think you guys know me by now. I do fall more on the lines of the Eric Cason fuck the state kind of vibes here. But as the saying goes, you may not be interested in politics, but politics is interested in you. And if you're even semi-awake at this point, you understand politics does affect our lives. And so I'm not against Bitcoin co-opting both sides of the aisles to get our, what we want done.
I want to say this: co-opting both sides of the aisle democratically, right, through the voting.
Yeah. By incentives, basically. Like I'm okay with using any part of the aisle to further facilitate what we want to happen. Obviously, in a legally democratic, constitutional republic kind of way. I really do believe in the incentives of Bitcoin, and that once you align yourself to the incentives of Bitcoin, then it really does fundamentally rewire your brain and rewire your point of view. And I think this is going to also happen on the political layer as well. Like, look, love or hate the Trumps, look at what's happening to the kids. If anyone there, and they even said it themselves, like they're not just here for a fad. They understood the necessity of Bitcoin, and now they're fundamentally trying to grok what's going on here and, of course, be an advocate for this because, one, of course, they're incentivized to do that, and two, they see the need. They've realized that, hey, look, if I don't want what happens to me and my family, I need to adopt Bitcoin and then further show that to more people. And so, again, Nico's more of a one-issue voter on this. You guys know my takes on voting and stuff, but I think if anyone in the aisle is for pro-Bitcoin stuff and they're actively and obviously verify that they really are Bitcoiners, then I think we should be able to use the political means as much as possible to get Bitcoin through the door. And as we've seen, this has had very clear and immediate consequences in regards to this election. So yeah, the Wall Street Journal is taking a slanted, biased take on what's going on here because David Bailey and his, SPAC or CPAC, they invested a lot of money into the Trump administration. As we saw, Trump came out pro-Bitcoin. The Harris campaign were obviously more pro-CBDCs. And it's actively and, again, very quickly made an effect on what's going on here. And that's not just for the U.S. This is international at this point. Like we talked about it yesterday. Poland just elected a pro-Bitcoin president. We're seeing China change its tune around Bitcoin. We're seeing they're using Taiwan as a proxy. We're seeing Russia go into bit bonds. And yesterday, or rather maybe this morning, we saw Korea elect a president that is also pro-Bitcoin. This is the wave and this is the trend. I think we've said it on the show for a long time that if you're not pro-Bitcoin at this point, or maybe this is just the beginning of it, but if in the future you want to run for politics, I don't know why you would want to, but if you do have that ambition, you're going to have to be pro-Bitcoin. And we're seeing this play out in real time. Like, we can say Bitcoin is apolitical, but the most political movement in the world is obviously an apolitical money. And so I don't think it's above what Bitcoiners want to do is to essentially use the system, use the beast as it is, and have Bitcoin be a Trojan horse and get what we all want to see in the future. It's not going to be perfect. I know a lot of ideological Bitcoiners don't like how it's happening because it's not happening exactly as they, foresaw it happen, but I think it's happening as it should be. And in the future, I'm pretty sure the Bitcoin future, the orange future that we were talking about, is going to happen with or without these politicians. But if we have them on our side, I think it'll be a lot easier. And of course, if they get off our backs, it's going to be a lot easier for us individually. So in the end, all roads lead to Bitcoin. We're going to win. I'm okay with it.
Absolutely. All roads lead to Bitcoin. All right, everybody, we're going to hit the culture segment. We have tons to cover. We will be right back in just 1 second. I want to give a shout out to our partner, HIVE Digital Technology. Why HIVE in 2025? Unstoppable growth. As the first ever public miner, HIVE's position to quadruple their global footprint, making them one of the world's fastest growing miners in 2025. And with elite operations that consistently top the industry in Bitcoin mined per exahash, HIVE's now headquartered in the USA. They're lean and mean, they're green and clean, and they're rewriting the playbook on sustainable Bitcoin mining. You can catch the latest buzz at HIVE Digital Tech or at hivedigitaltech.com. Need liquidity without having to sell your Bitcoin? For more than 6 years now, Ledin has been the trusted choice for Bitcoin-backed lending with transparency, security, and trust at their core. I absolutely love these guys, and I personally not only have an account with them, but also a loan. And some of the key features that I love about Ledin is the fact that there are no monthly payments. You pay at the end of the term. You also have the ability to roll over the loan as well, and you can pay it back whenever you want. Essentially what they do is that they help their clients unlock the liquidity of their BTC, allowing you to hodl while still accessing the wealth of your Bitcoin. They've been battle tested with their focus on transparency, security, and trust, allowing them to build a proven track record of client success and security, helping tens of thousands of clients harness the value of their digital assets with confidence and peace of mind. Learn more about what your BTC can do for you today. Simply Bitcoin viewers get 0.25% off their first loan by using the link in the video/podcast description. What are you waiting for? Head over to ledin.io today. All right, everybody, we are back, and Opti is launching a paid group.
You can't see this.
Opti is
no. I'm
not.
Paid group. I'm totally not.
You can go to
Actually,
Telegram.
here is my free paid group advice. That if you want to pay me, I don't know what the paid group prices are. $1,000 a month for it's literally just smash buy Bitcoin every time you have fiat. There is your paid group advice. No, this is kind of a meme. And I see everyone in the chat, and I actually saw a comment earlier, and someone's like, with all this good news, why isn't the price going up? And this is probably the question everyone's asking right now. It's like, we're getting literally the most bullish news cycle ever, and supposedly some of the biggest buys in Bitcoin, but the price is still kind of going sideways. What's going on? And Jason Williams, aka Going Parabolic on Twitter, he did this funny tweet this morning. He goes, Bitcoin is the only market in history where buyers come in, buy $1 billion worth of the asset, and the price goes down. That's how markets work, right? Right, guys? Isn't this what's going on? And essentially the joke here is, with all the amount of buys that we're hearing from MetaPlanet, MicroStrategy, 21 Capital, potentially nation states buying, we're having hundreds of Bitcoin treasury companies pop up everywhere. They're scooping up, and BlackRock, they're scooping up literally more Bitcoin than a year's supply of Bitcoin that will be mined throughout the year. Like, what is going on? The ETF is the most successful ETF launch ever. They're holding, I don't know, hundreds of thousands. I think it might even it's millions of Bitcoin at this point. We know MicroStrategy themselves hold 500,000 Bitcoin, and there's new entrants every single day. And you think with all of this buy pressure, something would happen and the price of Bitcoin would go up. Well, yes and no. I think when you just think of simple supply-demand economics, there's probably a lot of OG holders that are selling their Bitcoin, or rather, nation states dumping their Bitcoin holdings. We still have not heard back with what is going on with the U.S. Bitcoin. Show me them coins, bro. Where is the audit is the big question. Anyways, I say all that to kind of break down for everyone This great article from Cointelegraph. Now, we all know Cointelegraph is a little shitcoinery, but they did do a good article on what moves the Bitcoin price. And I'm not going to read the whole thing. I'm just going to kind of break it down, but I'll read the conclusion, which I think is the whole signal here for every one of us. So the title is Who Really Controls Bitcoin Price in 2025? Whales, devs, or governments? Explain. And then it goes into how do the whales influence Bitcoin, market makers, etc. It's talking about the number of wallets holding 1,000 plus coins, whether they're OGs or whether they're exchanges and hedge funds. But there is an interesting number here. And of course, as I mentioned, BlackRock and Strategy alone hold a shit ton of Bitcoin. Forgive me, I know this is a family-friendly show, but together the two firms control an estimated 6% of the total Bitcoin supply, a staggering figure in an ecosystem with fixed issuance and increasingly thin exchange liquidity. Now, the point that I think a lot of Bitcoiners, or rather, even us who've been here for a long time, we always hear about the whales, oh, it's the whales suppressing the price. Oh, it's the whales pumping the price. Well, from their data points, it's starting to show that there's essentially two different whales being played out. We have the OG Bitcoin whales that want to accumulate Bitcoin for the long term, and we seemingly have the new institutional interests here from the hedge funds that are looking for more short-term capital. And it goes, whales aren't necessarily hodlers either. They buy at scale, take profits on strength, and often offload right when retail piles in. Since the start of 2025, several major corrections have followed large inflows to exchanges from whale wallets, a pattern on-chain analysts flagged as early as February. On the flip side, stretches of dormancy in whale wallets have coincided with upward price momentum, including Bitcoin's climb past 110,000. That said, not all whales are short-term traders. Data from Crypto Quaint shows that long-standing whale addresses have realized just $79 million in profit since April, while newer large holders, largely likely hedge funds or high net worth individuals, have taken over $3.2 billion off the table in the same period. This suggests a bifurcation. Early whales appear to be consolidating for the long haul, while new entrants are quicker to cash out. And I think we've been seeing this in the data ever since the institutions have come. The high frequency traders, we have seen some interesting stuff on the chart where it's kind of breaking from old patterns, which I think again is going into this idea of like maybe this time is different. Maybe we're going to get a longer bull cycle and a bull cycle. Hold on. I'm choking over here, guys. Whale behavior may be nuanced, but the impact remains blunt. Whether they're accumulating or distributing, these entities continue to play an outsized role in setting the tone and direction of Bitcoin's price action. Obviously, if you're familiar with markets, the market makers are really in control. Or if you're more, tinfoil hat Bitcoiners, you're probably thinking the exchanges are trading against you, and those are probably the whales. This is why we don't recommend you guys trade. Next is this idea of can the developers influence the Bitcoin price? Now, indirectly, they can essentially by, implementing new upgrades. We haven't seen many in the past few years. There's a lot of talk of some new upgrades. There's even been talks of a hard forks, which I think probably is off the table. But TLDR, the devs don't really influence the Bitcoin price. Yes, there is some hype and there is some correlation with new upgrades to Bitcoin and the price going up, but essentially, they can make it look better, but they're not the ones really driving the price. If anything, it's the whales. Now, moving forward, the third one is how governments don't control Bitcoin but still move the market. Now, this may change because we do have a lot of rumors or a lot of talk about nation states buying Bitcoin. And if they do go into buying millions of Bitcoin, then that's obviously going to move the price, or rather maybe the price floor of Bitcoin. But from their take, they don't necessarily move the price, but they can hamper the price with regulations or the China ban, etc. There is ways that governments can essentially stifle the Bitcoin price runs, as we saw in 2021 when China had the mining ban. But essentially, the regulations are, some red tape to basically scare away investors from Bitcoin. And this is where it all kind of comes together. What drives Bitcoin's price? Who really controls Bitcoin's price? It's not the whales alone. It's not the core devs. It's not the SEC, the Fed, or the Chinese Politburo. It's all of them and none of them, tangled in a decentralized tug of war where power is shared, situational, and constantly shifting. One, whales still move volume, especially in illiquid moments. Developers shape the protocol, laying the rails for future use cases. governments add pressure or permission through regulation, taxation, and enforcement, and macro forces, interest rates, inflation, and dollar strength set the broader risk appetite. But those are just the headline players. Sentiment, too, holds real weight. Retail euphoria can create parabolic runs. Institutional caution can trigger sharp retreats. Even social narratives from AI hype to global instability now influence how Bitcoin is positioned in portfolios. And 2025, you've seen this interplay in action. Spot ETF approvals brought record inflows, but not always sustained rallies. Regulatory crackdowns in one region were met with growth in another. Whale movements triggered less panic in calmer markets. And sometimes the biggest surges came from narrative momentum alone, not fundamentals. That's the paradox of Bitcoin. It's decentralized, but not immune to influence. It reflects belief, behavior, and a constant negotiation between users, builders, institutions, and regulators. The price is less a verdict than a pulse, tracking confidence, uncertainty, and conviction in real time. And as we've been covering on the show, we have yet to see retail come in. And now you could arguably say that maybe retail won't have the impact that it's had in the past, because now we really have the institutional deep pockets coming in. We have the nation states coming in. But we are seeing something go on that I've always called, the billionaire FUD playbook. We literally saw Jamie Dimon last week basically concede to the idea that his customers want Bitcoin. So I would just argue, guys, as we always say, chill out, zoom out, stack sats. The price is going to run. Now, what is going to be the last straw that breaks the camel back for it to really start pumping? We don't know what that catalyst is going to be, but it's starting to play out in a way where I'm starting to feel it, Nico. I'm starting to feel it in my oracles here. It's going to start moving. It is moving. I can feel it in my plums, Nico. It's gonna start ripping. I think everyone watching Bitcoin, and you can almost see the sentiment as well, not only just like in the chat, but on Twitter. This is why everyone's arguing about stuff, is like when the price goes sideways or it goes down, this is when Bitcoiners attack each other. And when it goes up, that's when we get euphoric. And I think we're seeing this dynamic play out in real time. But something's going to break, Nico. And it's going to break upwards.
Upwards, 100%. I mean, look, we've been saying this for quite a while now. I think this is the most bullish cycle from a news perspective. From a price action perspective, this has been one of the worst cycles, to be honest with you. I think it's just a matter of time before the price action catches up with all the insane news that is happening. And just to kind of show you guys Google Trends, right? We had kind of a mini blow off top in November and December, where people were searching Bitcoin. Back in 2021, there was interest, but we haven't reached the euphoria of 2017. We haven't gotten back to that. We have not even gotten back to the euphoria.
We haven't added back yet
to the euphoria of Bitcoin being surged since 2017, right? So I think those days are going to come back. I think 2021 was artificially cut short because of the China mining ban. I think with everything that's happening, the general consensus that I feel this cycle is everyone is kind of bearish in a way. It's look, Bitcoin's going to hit 150K, 200K. This is it. And I'll tell you this, guys. Normally, when everyone is predicting a price, that's not how it works. No one knew in 2017 when Bitcoin was at $1,000
that it's going to 20K.
That it was going to end at 20K. No one in their right mind knew. It just became this mania phase. And I think there's a probability of that happening again. There's a zero chance, probability that happens again, and I'm all for it. But again, you got to stay humble, stack sats, and hold on for dear life. That's really how Bitcoin works.
Nico, everyone, actually, this was kind of the consensus that I heard from a lot of people at the Bitcoin conference. Just jokingly and kind of trolling a little bit. You always ask people what is your Bitcoin price prediction? And so many people said oh, I think 150, 160. And me and Rustin are looking at each other and we're like, yo, look at all these bears. That's so bearish. And then I don't know if you guys caught the interview I did with CJ. It was absolutely a banger. And I think he was the only person that with a straight and sober face said, yeah, we're going to like 321 easily by, data points. And I was like, yes, this is my kind of dude. Like, this is the kind of Bitcoiner that I like. All these vanilla 150K, I'm like, bro, get out of here. What are you even doing here? Like 150K, what are these numbers for ants? And then CJ is like 321K, period. Go check out the interview. He'll break down all the math for you. It's on our channel already. He killed it. Love CJ.
Absolutely. All right, everybody. That was today's show. If you guys enjoyed the show, you know what to do. Smash the like button. Consider subscribing if you feel like we provided you value. Guys, we absolutely love you. Love you all. We wouldn't be here without you. We appreciate the love, the support. And guys, subscribe to Simply Bitcoin. Subscribe to us on all the platforms. Give us a comment. Give us a share. Really helps with the show. If you guys really want to support the show, go check out simplybitcoin.com. The merch that Opti's wearing, it's for sale. You can buy some merch. Buy Bitcoin first, obviously. And love you all. And we'll see you guys tomorrow.
It's running low.
For a brand new episode of Simply Bitcoin.
Today's episode was brought to you by BitcoinWell.com, a Bitcoin-only platform on a mission to enable financial independence.